Happy Martin Luther King Day and welcome into the Charm City Birdwatch podcast. I'm your host, Jake McDonald. What a crazy NFL weekend it was. It was deemed the best weekend on the NFL calendar and certainly lived up to the hype, and I think that was much needed after the season that it's been having. Whether it was the Jaguars scoring 45 points in Pittsburgh, the Eagles squeaking by the Falcons, or Case Keenum and Stephon Diggs leading the Vikings into the NFC Championship game in Philadelphia, it was certainly a crazy weekend of football. Now there are only 4 teams remaining in the quest for a Lombardi Trophy at Super Bowl 52 from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and one of the teams left, the Vikings, could be the first Super Bowl team to play in their home stadium, which certainly would be a monumental occasion. So once again, I'm Jake McDonald. You can find me on Twitter at jmcdonald95. You can find us on CharmCityBirdwatch.com, CharmCityBW on Twitter, and of course subscribe to us through either iTunes or SoundCloud for all content. We're going to have plenty more this week in regards to the playoffs and more, but today we're going to shift our focus to college football and not just any team. The national championship winning Alabama Crimson Tide, of course, defeating the Georgia Bulldogs 26-23 in overtime in walk-off fashion last week in Atlanta in the brand new Mercedes-Bentz Stadium. The person who I'm about to have on was not only at the national championship last week, but was also at the Sugar Bowl and a bunch of Alabama football games throughout the years. She is Bethany Miller, and not only just graduated from Alabama just a couple weeks ago, now producer and reporter at WVUA-23 in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, but she's also, like me, a 2014 graduate of Susquehannock High School in Glen Rock, Pennsylvania. And of course, she has an older brother, Troy, who played college baseball at Stevenson University, and her younger brother, Connor, is currently a freshman at York College of Pennsylvania playing baseball. So if you know Bethany, whether as a relative or a friend, or if you're a former classmate of mine in Susquehannock High School, certainly want to welcome you into the podcast. And without further ado, let's bring in Bethany in. Of course, not only her, but her family, big-time Orioles and Ravens fans, but we're going to shift our focus to Alabama and the national championship winning Crimson Tide. So let's get it started. Here's Bethany. All right, so without further ado, let's welcome in WVUA-23 producer and reporter Bethany Miller. Again, you can find her on Twitter at Bethany_Miller3. So, Bethany, I want to ask you first, I didn't really know going into college that I wanted to be like a sports reporter, sports journalist. I went in as an accounting major, and after one semester of doing that, I had had enough. Real quick, did you know going in right away that you were set on being like a reporter, or did you figure that out after your first couple semesters?
I went in dead set. I was like, I'm going to be the next Erin Andrews. No one's going to stop me. And I remember vividly my very first class at Alabama. It was our intro to telecommunication and film, which is like the degree I have, which is what they call sports broadcasting. And it was a class of about 300 people. And she goes, okay, now raise your hand if you want to be a reporter. And everybody raised their hand. And then she was like, all right, now keep your hand raised if you want to be a sports reporter. And 250 out of the 300 people kept their hand raised. And she was like, you all are not going to be sports reporters. You're going to get weeded out through all these hard classes. And so it kind of took a toll on me. I'm like, okay, I may not be the next Erin Andrews because every other girl in this room wants to be. So it took me a little bit to kind of come into my shell, but WVUA helped me immensely. I've been there for now 3.5 years. And for a little bit, I got burnt out because it takes a while to get in a sports program. But once I did, over the summer, I got back on camera. I started loving what I do. And basically this fall, I kind of solidified the fact that I want to be on camera. I may not be the next Erin Andrews. That's okay because I'm me and I'm going to be Bethany Miller somewhere and be a sports reporter. And I think being here in Tuscaloosa really helped me kind of come into that.
So now that you just graduated a couple weeks ago, and are you staying at WVUA for the time being as both on air or producing, or one or the other? What's your current situation like now?
Yeah, so I'm still I'm basically kind of, you can say volunteering. It's a really small station. Funds are really low. So I got paid all of last semester. I was a paid employee, and now after graduating, they're like, we can't afford to pay you, but we would still love for you to be on, produce content, keep my reel updated, because that was the main thing. So as I'm looking for jobs right now, I applied to 5 jobs yesterday. Just scary. But I'm just staying at WVUA, just making content. Yeah, I am producing as well. I produce a live sports talk show. It's called Tighter Insider. So I'm still keeping up with that, and then just kind of picking out stories and making my own packages and doing features and stuff like that.
So going back to just your time at Alabama, I mean, they've won 5 national titles in the last decade, but they've won 2 during your time there. Not only just like being around the team, but covering it. Like, what was it like to cover the Alabama football team and being at the Sugar Bowl, the national championship? I'm sure all that was just amazing overall, but what are some of the takeaways from your experience doing that?
I just think covering Alabama football in general is like a blessing. Like, I came to Tuscaloosa and here to the university because I would be able to get those opportunities, but I never thought it would like happen. Like, I was always just like, oh, like maybe one day. And then this year, obviously, I was at the Sugar Bowl. I was at the national championship. And it's just, I mean, everybody can hate on Alabama. We are the Patriots of college football. I get that. But being here, like, around people who are just as passionate as I am about it, being able to, like, live and be a fan and also cover this team during, like, probably one of the best dynasties in college football maybe ever is truly just absolutely amazing. And then going to the Sugar Bowl and going to the national championship, I mean, they're exhausting trips, absolutely exhausting. So, like, when I was there, I was like, the only thing I want to do is be in my bed. And then I'm, like, walking around, like, the Mercedes-Bentz Superdome and then Mercedes-Bentz Stadium in Atlanta. And I'm like, no one else is getting these opportunities. Like, I have to make the most of it. So really, like, being there was just truly just eye-opening. I never thought it would happen to me. And then us winning when we were there, I mean, watching the first half of that game, I don't think anybody thought that we were going to win. Like, Nick Saban even said, he was like, no one thought we were going to win. So, like, we were in the media holding room watching that last play, and, like, everybody held their breath. Like, we were just, like, in this concrete room, and then he caught, like, Devontae Thompson caught the ball, and it was just like, what just happened? And, like, it was just a dead sprint to the field after. So it was just crazy and eye-opening and just one of the best experiences of my life ever.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was a very similar play last night in the Vikings and Saints game with the Stephon Diggs walk-off touchdown. Maryland Terp, shout out to him. But you were on the field afterwards, the confetti falling, like taking that moment in. Like, you go to school in Alabama, so there's, honestly a fan part of you that's obviously going crazy. But interviewing players after the game, being on the field with the confetti falling, what was that moment like to you?
It was surreal. Like, it was absolutely surreal. So, like, after he got the pass, like, literally just everybody just, because anybody with a camera was not allowed on the field until, like, the clock hit 0, which is normally not how it is during, like, regular season games. But, like, the playoff games and everything like that, like, they don't let you on the field. So it was just a dead sprint through a tunnel to, like, get out there on the field, like, shoving and pushing. And then, like, the minute I stood there and just, like, took it, like, there was confetti on me. Because I was going out on that field no matter who won. Like, that was the plan. It was like, if Georgia would have won, I would have been out there doing the same thing. Like, having to, like, choke back tears as I covered it. But the fact that it was Alabama and, like, the confetti falling, my, like, whole plan, I just was shooting B-roll. Like, just celebration video. And then after about, like, 20 minutes of that, I, like, put the camera down and just, like, looked around. And I'm like, this is amazing. Like, you get to experience it. Like, the fans were just going absolutely insane. The players were running to, like, hug their family. There were so many former players there. Like, it was just one of the coolest moments of my life, and I will never forget it. Like, I took so many souvenirs from the field. I, like, grabbed streamers. I grabbed newspapers. I was just like, I want to remember this forever, like, absolutely forever. And then I went to the locker room after the game and just, like, seeing how the players responded and, like, they were so happy. It was just like I was a part of history, and it's the coolest thing that I've ever done.
We have WVUA Channel 23's Bethany Miller with us, not only a recent graduate of Alabama, but also a former high school classmate of mine, a 2014 graduate of Susquehanna High School. So I'm sure not only getting to cover the game, but I'm sure, getting to be in Atlanta, New Orleans, you got to go out and experience the cities. I know New Orleans is a big party city. So how are the experiences like, not going into all the details, of course, but like just the cities in general, the nightlife, just being out while the championship games were in town?
Yeah, New Orleans was definitely an experience. I mean, as she said, big party capital. I did go out a couple of times just because I have always wanted to experience Bourbon Street. Like, I've always wanted to go to New Orleans. So I was like, this is it. I'm going to take advantage. And it was crazy. There's so many fans. Like, it was just, like, literally just a sea of red and orange, like, when we were on top of one of the balconies. It was crazy, like, how many fans there were. And I mean, it was a great experience. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't my favorite city I've ever been to, but Atlanta, I think, was like the best destination for the championship game. Like, the entire city was amazing. It was so easy to get around, which people from Atlanta wouldn't say that, but it was way better than New Orleans. But I've been able to go to a bunch of places. I mean, I went to Starkville this year. I went to Auburn. Unfortunately, that's okay. And it's just like, it's really cool getting to experience these cities like in a different light. Like, it's something I never would be able to do if I didn't do sports reporting or wasn't covering the game. But they've been great experiences, and I definitely would not take it back for anything.
Now, I'm sure, as you know, a lot of people, whether it's finances or whether it's the comfort of being close to home, a lot of people, college kids, stick to state schools, like myself included. But you were bold enough to go down to an SEC school in Alabama, and I'm sure you're happy you got that experience, and it's certainly great. But how would you compare Alabama, Tuscaloosa to your home roots in York, Pennsylvania, how they're similar and how they're different?
Oh, my gosh. I think it's like night and day a little bit. I would say Tuscaloosa is a true college town. Like, there is nothing about it that is not just completely centered around the university, and I think that is the reason why I loved it so much. It really actually reminded me of Penn State. Like, Penn State's campus, the entire town, city is just about the university. Like, everything is there to cater for the students, which I think is really awesome. I mean, there are like real adults and real people that live here, but I mean, the nightlife and the restaurants and everything, it's for college kids. Like, I was here over the summer, and it was like a ghost town. Like, it was absolutely crazy. So comparing it to York is a little bit like apples and oranges. But, I mean, I do love York. I love my home. I love my family. I love going back and seeing them. But, I mean, Tuscaloosa's home now, and I kind of love that about myself and that I picked it. But, yeah, I definitely love aspects of both, but they're very, very different.
So, of course, being from York, Pennsylvania, of course, we all know you're a Baltimore Ravens and Orioles fan. And, of course, the Ravens missing the playoffs 4 out of 5 seasons. They have a lot of needs going into the upcoming NFL draft, but particularly on offense, whether it's, wide receiver, tight end, running back, playmakers is the big key word everybody's looking for right now. And, of course, as Newsome loves, it's Alabama guys. So who are some potential fits for the Ravens in the upcoming draft? And just a note, they have the 16th overall pick in the first round, but from covering the team, who are some guys that you think the Ravens could target?
Yeah, it's always hard to like kind of predict it because, I mean, last year everybody was predicting like all of the Alabama guys to go before they did. And like obviously the first one to go was Marlon to the Ravens for number 16, which is crazy. So it's always hard to predict it and like who he's going to go with. But I always know Ozzy's going to pick an Alabama guy. I mean, I think everybody does. And I mean, that's great for the Ravens. I would say, I mean, running back, Bo Scarborough is obviously a great pick for anybody, I think. I kind of like disagreed with his decision to go now. I think he definitely should have stayed in Alabama one more year and kind of grown a little bit more. But he declared, and that's okay and cool, and I would love for him to go to the Ravens. I think he kind of reminds me of Collins when you think about it. Like, he's just so strong and powerful. His legs are insane. He can fight through about almost anyone. No one can tackle him. So it's just, I think he would be a great fit. I mean, maybe having 2 of the great running backs on our team would be great. But, and then you also, for wide receiver, you have Calvin Ridley, who is obviously amazing. He was Jalen Hurts' target all season. But, I mean, I don't know if the Ravens will go for him per se. I don't think drafting wide receivers in the draft has ever really panned out, except for a couple. So I think, like, maybe getting a more experienced wide receiver from another team with NFL experience would definitely be better. But I'm not averse to drafting Calvin Ridley because Roll Tide. So.
Now, of course, the Ravens have a number of Alabama players on the roster right now, whether it's C.J. Mosley, whether it's Tim Williams or Marlon Humphrey. Did you have any relationship with them? Did you know any of them when they were at Alabama? Did you have any classes with them?
I didn't have any classes with them. I did have classes with O.J. Howard because he was in my major. So that was always cool. He was in my very first class in college. So I was like, oh, my God, it's a real-life football player. But then it, like, kind of wears off a little bit. I think it's awesome when so many Alabama players go to the Ravens because it's like 2 of my worlds colliding. So I love it. Like, the minute we drafted CJ, I was like, all right, I need a jersey ASAP. But the coolest thing I think about seeing them after is because they all came to the national championship. Like, Marlon was obviously like supposed to be a part of this class that just won the Natty, but he did declare early. But it's so cool because they're so supportive. It's like a family. Like, no matter where they go, no matter who they get drafted by, they always come back. And I think that's the coolest thing about Alabama. Like, when I was out in the field after, CJ was out there with his brother, Jamie Mosley, and, like, they were taking pictures, and he was in the locker room after, and then just seeing all the other ones. Like, Marlon was there. I didn't see Tim Williams, but O.J. Howard was there, Kenyon Drake. And so seeing all of them, I never had a relationship with them, but, like, seeing them support the team as well as like going out and doing their thing in the NFL is just truly amazing to me.
Just two more quick things for WVUA Channel 23's Bethany Miller. Again, Bethany_Miller3 on Twitter. Is college football you're dead set on, covering that, or are there other sports that you're interested in, or is college football mainly your top priority?
Well, I mean, being here in Alabama during the fall semester, I mean, college football is everybody's top priority. Like, unfortunately, all the other sports fall to the wayside when we're covering them. So, like, the past 5-6 months have just been all Alabama all the time when it comes to football and all that. And, like, even when it's the off season, it's like, all right, now we got to gear up for National Signing Day and, like, do our whole special. So here I would say it's definitely my top priority, but going out, like, into the real world and finding a station to work at, it's definitely not something that's going to sway my decision. I think it would be awesome to work in a market where I'd be, like, able to go cover certain games and all that kind of stuff, but it's definitely not my top priority. If I were to go to maybe a bigger station or work for, like, a network, I would love to cover baseball. I think that'd be absolutely amazing to cover the MLB anywhere. But there's definitely not one sport that I'd be like, yes, I want to cover it. That's all I want to cover. I'm definitely open, especially going into the job world, like right away from college. Can't be too picky, but maybe like throughout my career, I'll be able to stick with a sport. And yeah, that would definitely either be college football or baseball.
So one last question for you. Of course, 4 teams remain in the NFL playoffs. And then if you're looking at the quarterbacks, it's Tom Brady and everybody else. But between the Patriots, the Jaguars, the Vikings, and the Eagles, does any team really stick out to you? Do you have a rooting interest in any of them? Or who's your Super Bowl pick?
Oh, real quick, it's hard not to pick against Tom Brady. I do think they're going to do it again, unfortunately. I say that as an Alabama fan talking about another dynasty. But, I mean, when the Ravens really don't have an interest, aren't in it, I really don't catch myself watching it. I mean, I definitely watch Super Bowl. Who doesn't? Justin Timberlake's performing this year. That is a big thing of mine. But I can't bet against Tom Brady. I mean, I would love for the Jaguars to win it. I just think it would be absolutely amazing because the world would implode if Blake Bortles won a championship. But, I mean, it's hard to go against the Patriots for sure.
Well, Bethany, it was great to have you on. Again, great to catch up, and best of luck with everything down at WVUA.
Thank you so much for having me on, Jake, okay?
Once again, WVUA reporter and producer Bethany Miller, Bethany_Miller3, finds her on Twitter. And just simply amazing to see not only a friend, but a high school colleague of mine go down and have success in the very similar field that I want to be in. And obviously getting to cover the Sugar Bowl or the national championship has just been an amazing experience. And I'm very happy for Bethany, as is my entire class, very proud and supportive of her as she pursues her career in sports media just like myself. So, again, I'm Jake McDonald. You can follow me on Twitter at jmcdonald95. Find us at Charm City BW on Twitter, as well as CharmCityBirdwatch.com, and of course subscribe on iTunes and SoundCloud. And we will be right here throughout the week with more coverage on Baltimore sports and the NFL playoffs, so keep it right here. We'll talk to you next time on the Charm City Birdwatch podcast.